Viewport navigation tools allow you to change your perspective, to look at the scene from a different position or angle. And the tools are found in the lower right corner of the interface. I don't recommend that you use those icons if you can help it. If you were to use those icons in production, you would incur many, many mouse miles going back and forth between those icons and whatever tool you're actually using. Really, you need to memorize the keyboard shortcuts for those most common viewport navigation tools. We'll start with the so-called pan, which is the little hand icon. And the keyboard or mouse shortcut for the pan tool is simply the middle mouse button. Hold down the middle mouse and drag to position your current view up and down and left and right. And that'll work in the perspective viewport or in the 2D viewports. These are the orthographic views of front, top, and left. We can hold down the middle mouse and we can drag in any of those viewports to change our position there too. If we hold down the Shift key, we can constrain to just the up and down or left and right movement. Hold down Shift and drag left to right, or hold down Shift and drag up and down. In a perspective view, that corresponds to a track or truck. Hold down Shift and drag left to right. That's a track or truck. Hold down Shift and drag up and down, and that is a pedestal. It's not technically a pan. Pan or panorama is when the camera stays in one position and rotates left to right. Next up, we've got a dolly or zoom, and that's the magnifier glass. And it operates differently in the perspective view versus these 2D orthographic views. In an orthographic view, if we use the zoom or magnifier glass, it is an actual zoom. And the keyboard mouse combination for that is Control, Alt, and middle mouse. And that allows us to optically magnify the viewport. I can click on a particular location and magnify in that location. Same in the top view or any of the orthographic views. However, in a perspective view, it's not a zoom at all. It's a dolly. Control, Alt, and middle mouse actually moves the camera forward and back along its own line of sight. That's not a zoom. A zoom is when the camera stays in one place and the field of view changes. If we wanted a zoom effect in our perspective view, for example, if we wanted to see more of the scene, then there's a different tool for that, and it is the field of view. And it looks kind of like a little angle. Click on that and click and drag, and we can get a wide angle shot or a telephoto or a tight shot. It doesn't operate the same way in these orthographic views. Notice when I clicked and drag in there, I got a completely different result. The tools down here are dependent upon whatever viewport you're in. So I selected the field of view tool, but then I went into an orthographic view and I got a different tool entirely. So that's a little bit of a gotcha there. But that brings me to how do we zoom out to where we were before? Well, one way is to zoom extents, and we can zoom extents to a selected object, or we can zoom extents to nothing. Right? If nothing's selected, then the view will zoom to include everything. So just making sure I have nothing selected, I can go down here to Zoom Extents Selected and click that button, and the viewport zoomed out to enclose all the selected objects, but nothing was selected, so it zoomed out to enclose everything. I'll go back to my Select Object tool. If we wanted to zoom in on a particular object, we could select that object, such as this light fixture, and we could use that same command or use the keyboard shortcut, which is Z. And we can do that in any viewport. The view does not even need to be highlighted with a yellow border. I can just hover the mouse over that view and press Z, and that view will zoom into the currently selected object. And incidentally, that does also make the current viewport active. So if I wanted to zoom all the viewports to enclose all of the geometry, then I would click on an empty area to select nothing. And then there's a button down here, Zoom Extents All Selected. And since nothing is selected, all the viewports zoom out to enclose all of the geometry. I can go back to my perspective view, right-click in there, and Control-Alt middle mouse, and I can zoom back in. I can pan with the middle mouse. That, of course, is actually truck or track and pedestal, not really pan. And I can dolly once again, Control-Alt and middle mouse.